Hello and welcome to the romance track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z and Morgan Brice, and tonight we are going to be talking about summer romance. What is so sweet about those sweet, sweet, sweet summer nights? But before we get into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Jeannie.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeanne Adams. I write urban fantasy, paranormal romantic suspense, and space adventure with my friend Nancy Northcott.
Stacey.
Everyone. My name is Stacey Agdern. I write contemporary romance, paranormal hockey romance, and a little bit of everything else. My most recent book is The Dreidel Disaster from Thule Publishing.
Okay. Hey.
I'm Kay Evan Coles. I write queer romance, and I mostly write contemporary, but I do like paranormal, and I do occasionally stray into the area of paranormal. And my latest book is called Color You In.
Nancy.
I'm Nancy Northcott. I write historical fantasy, sometimes with and sometimes without strong romantic elements for Falstaff Books. I also independently publish several different kinds of romance, and the paranormal ones that happen to take place in the summer and that don't are behind me. And with Jeanne Adams, as she said, I write science fiction.
Okay. Layla.
I'm Layla Dorine. I write LGBTQ fiction and romance, heavy on the bikers, shifters, rockers, and pretty much all things in between. Daddies and Littles has been another big one too, actually.
Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ariel Dawn. I write a little bit of everything, from paranormal romance to contemporary romance to why choose to male. I write it all. I'm best known probably for my more paranormal stuff, my Monsters of Ashwood series and my Ava Crowley series. And I do actually have a summer romance. It is a why choose romance, and we'll probably talk about that later.
Okay. And as I said, I'm Gail Z and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. There's romance in almost all of my series, but of course, you're going to get a lot more of it in the Morgan Brice. So let's start with, kind of the main question here. We're here to talk about summer romance. What is it about summer that is particularly romantic? We've got 4 main seasons, so why summer? Jeannie?
Oh, gosh. Well, the weather's warm. You can be outside. There's baseball. I had to mention that.
You had to mention it.
There's so many opportunities to just be out there, being yourself, meeting people. And I think summer is just a freer time of year. We're all off school and we don't have to be in carpool lane. So yeah, I think there's just a freer sense through summer.
Okay. Stacey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely in agreement with what Jeannie said, especially when you're talking about it's a freer time of year. You have time to explore the world, whether it's on a local trip, whether it's an international vacation. There is also local areas where you get to go to the beach and sit with your toes in the sand. The waterfront, if you live near that, or if you'd like to go to those. There's also a ton of amusement parks and fairs and festivals and reasons to be outside. And of course, when you don't feel like it, there's also ice cream, air conditioning, beautiful movie theaters where you can sit with your significant other or friends and just have a blast in the air conditioning, or dive into a pool somewhere and just stay there. There are multiple opportunities, whether you're avoiding the insanity that comes with huge baseball stadiums in your vicinity, or or enjoying just sitting outside with a bunch of cotton candy. It's summer is just one of those things where you can, it's just right for romance, basically.
Okay.
All right. So I live in New England, and the winters are hard. So in the summertime, it's when people start to lose their minds when it turns 40 degrees and they wear shorts, and you're like, it's still cold, be careful. But I do think that for people who live in places where winter is really a thing, summer becomes something that it's such a change of season, that I think it becomes really something that a lot of people look forward to. Obviously, not everybody likes summertime. I do. And I especially like, first of all, what everyone's been saying, but also I want to add picnics and hammocks. These are two very nice things that you could do more easily in the summertime. Also, yes, to baseball, 100%. I just think that as long as you're not uncomfortable when it's hot, you can do so much more exploring, and then you can take your clothes off and go skinny dipping if that is something that you want to do. There's more sort of opportunity to be playful, to me anyway.
Okay. How about you, Nancy?
Well, I think everybody's made really good points. For me, summer presents an opportunity, yes, to hang out outside, but also if anybody in the group has children, you can let them be outside and run around. Whereas if they're in somebody's house and they're running around, you've got to keep an ear out for breakage at all times. And so it's a little bit more relaxed. And, as Kay said, you can go strip off your clothes and skinny dip or just be scantily clad. Like guys take their shirts off a lot in the summer when they're working out.
Yay.
Yay. And, people hang out and swim. In one of the books that's not behind me, it's a small town romance, and the hero has a pond on his property. And there's a picnic by the pond scene, and everybody's wearing bathing suits. And I omitted the mosquitoes that would really seriously be there if this were to occur in North Carolina in the summer. But it was kind of fun to have that to play with.
How about you, Layla?
I'm a beach girl. I grew up in the tropics. I went to school in New England where, right on the water. So yeah, as soon as it got warm enough, you headed to the beach. And growing up on Guam, that's the only place I wanted to be. Being stuck, moving from Guam to New England is like, okay, this cold stuff sucks. I'm used to being at the beach year round, but it was kind of cool as a teenager to go to high school there and live in this city where so many things went on. You had the festivals, Whaling City Festival, the Portuguese Feast, you had the Seafood Fest by the dock, you had all the stuff up and down the coastline. And at night, it's magical. Summer nights, because you can be outside more and you can be in the lighter clothes or the less amount of clothes. You can put the lanterns and the bonfires on the beach, and you can sit out and be in the water or be on the sand, and you can have, that person who breaks out the guitar and somebody's singing, and you can have those groups and then break off with your characters when you're writing to, like, you've got that group that's sitting there, and then the two that walk off down the stand for a little alone time, and that secret picnic in the little cove that's all set up by the time they get there, and they just have like the music on the phone playing while they're dancing in the sand. You've got the moonlight and the stars, but you can still be in the water because it's warm. So it's like there's so many things you can do in summer, and I love writing summer romances. I write at least 2 each year because there's just so many. I love amusement parks, and at night, like, most parents, it gets dark and the parents take the kids home. And so I don't like to go to an amusement park until later in the day when the parents are taking all the little kids home and the rides get shorter. Because then you can be on those rides and you can run around and explore the park and play the games without those long lines. And, you can really just kind of be out there and be a big kid in the splash pad and not tripping on anyone. So summer nights, if I would have to be specific, are like the best parts of summer for me.
Okay. Ariel?
Kind of touching on what everybody else said a little bit with, obviously things getting a little bit warmer. There's a lot more activities, wherever you are, whether you're dealing with harsh winters or mild ones. I think for me, a lot of what I think about when I think about summer romance, is growing up, reading books, which is not a shocker to anybody, I'm sure. Like summer camps and, things like that. But I think too, growing up, kind of like we were conditioned to a lot of that through the movies that we watched and the books that we read and things like that. So, I always think of like, I know it's kind of like an odd thing to think about with summer, but I guess they call it like slasher summer now, where it's like all the horror-y stuff. Like I Know What You Did Last Summer and things like that. So when I think of summer, that's kind of like what I think of. I think of like, because I'm a fall person, even though I was born in the summer. I'm not a huge fan of the heat. So for me, I think of it more or less of like those summer nights of like swimming in the pool or like, camping in the woods. Even though I am the least outdoorsy person you will ever meet, I was forced to camp for 13 years of my life. So I think of stuff like that, like summer camps and hiking in the woods and swimming in ponds and very, slasher ween, summer ween type things.
I grew up in the Northeast where summer lasted for approximately 2.5 weeks at the end of July. You don't blink and you miss it. And even then, it didn't really get all that warm, and the water didn't really warm up all that much, but it wasn't snowing. And now I live in North Carolina, and I can tell you that there is a difference between good hot and sweaty and not so good hot and sweaty. The kind of hot and sweaty where it's like, oh, get away from me, you're dripping. That is not the sexy hot and sweaty. But yeah, everybody has hit on so many wonderful things about summer. Just let's also mention going out and picking berries or going out and picking flowers or walking your dog who wants all the attention.
Hello, Dax.
He picked the perfect time to put in an appearance.
Oh yeah, he's getting treats. He's getting paid.
That's his favorite part of summer.
And he knows it. But all of those things, just being outdoors when it's not stiflingly hot, and maybe that's in the morning, maybe that's at night, maybe you have the constitution to deal with that hot and sweaty in the middle of the day. I'm with Ariel. I'll be in the air conditioning, but it's nice to look outside the window when all the leaves are green and everything is in full bloom. But I think there's room to tell stories about all of those things. And all of those different reactions. It can be kind of fun on a grumpy sunshine thing to have somebody who is gung-ho, it's summer, and the other person is, you're blocking the air conditioning. Boom. That can be a fun relationship to explore. So let's talk about the kinds of stories that you write for summer that you might not write at other times of the year. Not just because of the setting, because in most of the country, the amusement parks aren't open in December, although they are some places. But what makes a summer romance story to you, Jeannie?
Well, I think somebody touched on it earlier, it's vacation time. So in the summer, you might go to some exotic locale. You might go on a cruise. It's very hard to go on a cruise in the middle of hurricane season. So most of them take place in early spring or summer.
I do not recommend.
10 out of 10, do not recommend. Yeah. So, you get settings you can use in summer that you may not be able to use other times. As Ariel said, summer camp. If you're a single parent, your kids go to camp, well, for 2 weeks, you're a single person. And so there are some things that you can do in summer that you can't do the rest of the year. And I think that's a fun opportunity for us as writers to sort of play with, and even as you said, Gail, the grumpy sunshine kind of trope of I hate summer, I love summer. I don't mind sweating. I love to run at noon in August. Versus, I will not leave the air conditioning until September 15th has arrived. And so, and I live that. My husband can't wait to put on his shorts, and I can't wait to put on my sweaters. And it is in DC, it is winter again today, and we have a freeze warning tonight, and it's April. Oh, joy. So, and we had summer weather for all of last week. Anyway, I think there are some settings you can use in summer that you can't use other times. And there's that freedom of vacation, because vacation is kind of expected in the summer. And so I think you can play with that. We as writers can play with that a lot and have fun with it.
Okay. Stacey?
So I love coming after Jeannie because she says some of the most really interesting things that make you think a little bit. And I think it kind of, what I'm going to talk about ties in with a couple of things that some other people have been saying, especially things that Layla said when she was talking about what summer looks like in certain areas. If you're following a setting through a series, especially a small town series, what you have is you have the chance to create a ton of different festivals by different places to show that nightlife, to show that. And you also have the chance to sort of go behind the scenes of that festival and how that's created. And I actually did that in History of Us, which is, you can kind of see, the green book to my left, not the one to my right with the dreidel, the one to stage left. And it's set on a small town on Long Island, which looks different during the winter. But during the summer, it's bright, you've got the waterfront, but you also have the planning of this festival. So you have the opportunity to go on, drives, and sort of sit outside and have a piece of pie at a famous pie place. This festival is being planned. And so you have the background of what's going on both in the festival and then in the town. And sort of what that festival is going to look like and how that's going to change the town in the time that it's being planned. You have, again, I talked about pie, but you also have the chance to talk about the special foods. For example, I every summer, the second it turns summer, I have to have my lemonade. It's a thing. I like lemonade throughout the rest of the year, but there is something about summer where I need it immediately and a lot. You could also turn the ridiculous obsession that someone has where they ended up in 2 different states to try to find their favorite lemonade and dragged their friends across in a quixotic quest through downtown Philadelphia to find the very specific lemonade that they liked. I am not even joking. But it's stories come from these kinds of experiences, creating festivals, having these special moments with your friends that you can only have during the summer in searches for things. The road trip that brings friends to lovers to get friends and turns them into lovers. It's the things that happen in those free moments that everybody's been talking about that make a summer romance, I think.
Okay.
That is a really great description, Stacey. Thank you, because I'm just going to keep going with what you just talked about with a couple of just give you some ideas about the 2 books that I thought of specifically for summer romances are one is about a wedding. So two people who are not in the wedding. Well, no, I'm sorry. They're in the wedding. They're not getting married, but this is how they meet because they are in the wedding party and they meet, and it's called Open Hearts. Whoops, it's disappearing. There it is. And then so weddings in the summertime, that's a thing that people do, but also there's this journey that they have to go on together because they're together all the time because they're, one guy is, his brother is the groom, the other guy, his sister is the bride. So they spend a lot of time together. And of course things happen because it's a romance, but think about all the times you've been in a wedding and how much time you spend at the wedding party and all of the, sometimes you develop really deep friendships. And those are some of the moments that, of course, weddings happen all year round, but in the summertime, there's, again, this whole thing where you could be outside under the stars at like a barbecue, or everybody's going to a festival in the city that is celebrating, Italian culture. These are the things that are happening where in summertime, more so than they are in the wintertime. And then somebody else was talking about vacation time and kids. And I really wanted to write like a single dad and a Manny kind of a situation. So of course there has to be a child. And it's not as much fun to have a kid in your story if the kid's in school all the time. So it happened in the summertime and it actually worked out really great. And that book is called Color You In. And it's a workplace romance that then becomes a single dad Manny thing.
Cool. Nancy? You're muted.
Sorry, there was noise in the living room and I wanted to avoid that. So sorry. I've been listening to what everybody has been saying, and I've also been thinking about it in the context of what I did. And of the books behind me, one of them is in the summer and one of them is in the late summer. But I didn't set them then because of the weather. I set the first one in the summer because I wanted mugginess, but it didn't play a big role in it. And then the series arcs through the course of a year. So that's just where the next book fell. But I do have a book that's not up behind me that's romantic suspense with no magic or anything like that. It's a small town story, second chance at love. And that's the one where they have the picnic out by the lake. And it's also a secret baby story. It is the only secret baby story I've ever written. It probably will be the only secret baby story I ever write. But it also gives them a time to spend some time with the child at the picnics. And, they're out of school. So they can go out to dinner and stay out a little later with the family and the kids. And yes, look at each other in skimpy bathing suits. So that's kind of an advantage too. So I think there are just so many opportunities in the summer that you don't get in the winter. And, I grew up in the Carolina Piedmont. I grew up with heat and humidity. I don't like it. So, I use it when I need it for a story, but otherwise I kind of pretend it doesn't exist as a rule. So that's me.
Okay, Layla?
Oh my goodness, all the festival fair food. That's first and foremost. I there's several of my books now that have characters talking about, like in Tattered Angel, they're having a conversation about the Ultimate Pickle Challenge, and two of the guys are like, "Yeah, this is not going to be a big deal." That they're trying pickles that are, you've cut the pickle in half, you've scooped out the insides, you've stuffed a Snickers bar, and you've wrapped it in something. It's crazy. They're doing this, and two of the guys are like, yeah, we've got our names and pictures on the side of a food truck for trying 10 of the most outrageous flavors at this outdoor festival their band played. And so we're talking like wasabi ice cream, lobster and butter ice cream. I got to do some taste testing for all of these to be able to comment on this in the book. And I've got several books that way that are specifically set up. A Daddy for Summer Angel is specifically set up around the two characters falling in love as they help plan a community. It's just a big community get together, but it's to raise money to build a splash pad within their community at the community park. So they get all the businesses involved and they set up these slip and slides and they make it a slip and slide event. And people just, can come, they can get a ticket for a little armband. They can do the slip and slides as many times as they want. They've got sprinklers and games set up, and all the businesses in the community are out there with gift cards and coupons and things where people are donating, but they're also like going and patronizing the businesses and all of that. So having the chance, you can't do that very many times of year. I've done Winterfest things for characters, which had to be indoors, but being able to do something outdoors that goes, from morning to ending with fireworks displays is just so much fun because you can really turn one day into a big story arc and have it play out over several chapters. So even my Pride Cruise book from last year, the whole book took place on a kink cruise that went down to the Caribbean. So they're in the tropics. They're scuba diving or not scuba diving, snorkeling and glass bottom boats, and they go to the jellyfish cafe because it's warm and I needed something for my characters that was different. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd been to Australia and seen some cool themed cafes and restaurants. And I'm like, I'm creating my own. And so when you go in and you sit down, all the food on the menu is like themed after jellyfish and cut in jellyfish shapes. So you'll have your sandwich that's the bell, and then it's got shredded apple and carrot and celery in wavy lines to look like the tentacles. And as they're eating the tanks of jellyfish, and this is a daddy little pet story. So of course the little and the pet are just fascinated by these tanks of jellyfish. And the daddy's running around and he's finding books that he can read them and jellyfish puppets. And it's just fun for all of them to go to this little cafe. I think it was like 2 chapters of just this cafe and all the cool things that I had for them in there. So I think summer inspires neat little things like that we can put into the books and really let a day matter over the course of a story.
Okay. Ariel?
I think, at least for me, like, it's the heat. It's the heat of summer. It's the heat of romance. The first thing you think about when you think about summer is you think of the heat, and for a lot of people, who write various stages of romance or different types of romance, we think of love and heat. So I feel like those things play off of one another. You can use that environmentally, as Layla said. You can do it more as an emotional heat, like, the kids away at summer camp, and now, I have a different identity for a little while. I just think there's a lot of interesting things, especially during the summer, to be able to play off of, both whether it's something that's very visual or it's something that's a little bit more metaphorical. I think, and especially for me, when I think of summer and when I'm writing more summer romances, I have two, technically. I have A Dark and Stormy Night, which takes place in the summer of 1996. So it's a historically summer to capture all those I Know What You Did Last Summer vibes. And then I have Heartbreaker, which is coming out this summer, which is a male summer romance set in the Hamptons. So when I think of summer, I think of like those types of vacationy, beachy things, but it's more or less for me a play of the heat of summer versus the heat of the heart, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, I have two series that are set at the beach. The Badlands series is set in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and the Treasure Trail series is set in Cape May, New Jersey. And they are both locations that I absolutely love. What's kind of fun with it is, beach locations are where people come on a trip and then they leave again. So there are a lot of transient people who are only there for a little bit. My main characters aren't from those towns. They've moved there for various reasons, but they now live there. So they're kind of in this middle space of they're not old timers, they're not from there, but they're not leaving on Friday and checking out of their hotel. So they have to kind of figure out how the culture of the town works and where they fit in that for the life that goes on around the tourists. So that's a lot of fun because you kind of got that dynamic of the outsider perspective, as well as, the whole beach ethos. And Myrtle Beach is a very different beach town than Cape May, New Jersey. Very, very different feel. So that's fun to play with too. And then there's the whole paranormal piece, because, some ghosts just like to stay at the beach.
Why not?
Why not?
What's
Could be
not to
a
love?
bear.
All right.
They don't like heat. The other thing for me with summer is road trips. And therein hangs a tale, many tales, where you've got two people who, for whatever reason, are stuck in a car together, stuck on a bus together, taking a trip that sounded fun. And now, 3 states into it, they're rethinking this, or whatever. But I grew up going on a lot of long road trips. My favorite TV show is Supernatural, which you could argue is one long road trip with those. And there's just so much going on a road trip. The cool, funky, weird places along the highway that you find, whether they're gift shops or museums or one-of-a-kind restaurants, the strange and wonderful parks and memorials, and oh look, there are airplanes sticking out of the ground. I wonder what that's about.
Look, a giant ball of string.
yeah. Oh, a vampire museum. Let's stop. There's all kinds of stuff that you find along the trip that you didn't plan on, and that to me is wonderful tinder for love to break into flame. So, folks, we have had no trouble going through all of this, but I want to give everybody a chance to go around one more time. And if you haven't already told us about your summer book, please at least mention it and let us know where we can find you online. So, Jeannie?
Well, I have a couple of summer books. One which will be a re-release later in the year, which was formerly one of the Kingdom Castle stories, but it's a midsummer romance focused around the pagan holiday of midsummer. One of my Dead Run, which is one of my one of my romantic suspenses, is set in the summer. And one of the things I got to bring up though before we move on is we didn't mention music and the fact that most outdoor music venues are only open in the summer, and every beach has a band shell, and so that's a fun thing too. And I use that in a couple of my short stories. So, and you said you want to go ahead and do the where you can find us part.
Where you can
Okay,
find us.
you can find me at jeanneadams.com. You can find me here on Continual, and you can find me on most social media, which you can find me through jeanneadams.com. I'm Jeanne Adams on most everything. So,
Okay, Stacey?
So there are, I want to say, two of my books that are fundamentally summer books. History of Us, which is the second book in a series about festivals that came out in 2021. Set on a small town on Long Island as a young woman comes back to help put together the Summer Days Festival, and runs into basically her last chance love, the guy who has been the second and third and fourth and fifth, and maybe they can pull it together this time, who happens to be a member of the family that basically is the center of this town and its history. The second book that is I think is a summer book for me is The Dating Contract, which starts at the Javits Center in June at a wedding expo as
Javits Center. Oh man, now you're giving me flashbacks.
Yes. It's funny, like one of the articles I wrote about the book, because the Javits Center under a different name shows up twice in that book. Once as the place for the wedding expo where our two main characters meet after many, many years. And the second time as it's really not New York Comic Con, but it actually is New York Comic Con, where my male main character signs for the first time as a letterer working for a comic company on the verge of some major career stuff that happens. But it's interesting to kind of think about like the spaces in between those two moments in the book, where the book starts out in June and continues through all the way till till the end of that year. So and the main characters in that book are dealing with the engagement of the heroine's sister, and the hero, the main male character in that story, is not only he's a comic letterer, but he is also a sofer. He is a traditional Jewish scribe that does like a whole bunch of things, and it's a really cool skill set to possess. And my main female character is a sports agent. So it's interesting, and it is my one big fake dating book, because I thought it would be kind of hilarious that a sofer would have to write himself a dating contract and negotiate it with a sports agent. So anyway, to find me, you can pretty much find me anywhere. 90% of social media you will find me as S. Agdern. The one piece of social media I should not be on, I am NY Stacey. Let's see, Facebook, I am Stacey A. Agdern, and staceyagdern.com is where you can find more information about my books, and they're available where books are sold, whether they're by the paranormal hockey series that I write with Isabel Kelly and Kenzie McLear, or my solo titles, whether they're my Tuli books or my Phoenix Blue collection.
Okay, great. Okay.
Can I just say first, Stacey, paranormal hockey. I am so intrigued. I have to.
Right?
The first time you said it, I was like, what? And then you said it again, I was like, oh, okay.
So the series, it's a lot of fun. The series is in a kind of a veiled world, kind of it's contemporary, but like slightly AU. We'll say. The first book in this series, there was only one paranormal story, and it was the worst sort of Neapolitan. And then the second book, it started fully becoming a paranormal hockey series. There are shifters, there are
I love it.
psychic, there's a lot of magic, there's telekinesis. It's just a really cool concept. We're actually working on a new one.
Love it.
I have 2 telepathically bonded hockey players who discover in the very worst of places that they're
I think we're all in.
I'm so intrigued.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, I am working on a shapeshifter hockey series. I freaking love knowing there's another paranormal hockey out
That's
there.
I
great.
feel like we discovered
Beautiful.
something.
No, it's so much fun. Like I love paranormal hockey as a genre. I think it's so much fun to play with. Generally
It
speaking,
really
not only
has
to
been.
write,
I
but to
started
read.
diving in it about like 6
Me
months
too.
ago, just creating the teams. And I'm like, oh my God, the things that I could do with
Yeah.
the teams of shifters, and what shifter species don't get along with each other, because
Oh.
that's going to cause conflict on the ice. So yeah,
I think about like Shelley Lawrenston's series with shifter hockey, like from ages ago, and then like there have been a couple there's been at least one hockey wizard that I've read. I do not remember the author. It's gonna drive me bananas, but I will find the name.
That's amazing.
But like like paranormal hockey, paranormal sports in general, but paranormal
Yeah.
hockey in particular, there's so much to play with.
yes.
Especially because there's like, as a sport, it's, you stick like 6 people on the ice together and a surface, it's like not very big. So there's going to be collisions. There's going to be, it's prepared. It's right.
Well, now we're
I am
clearly
looking
going to have to
forward to
do.
putting them behind a polar bear and just having 2 penguins on each side of a polar bear and
I love
watching
it.
them go down the ice together.
I love it.
And clearly, we're going to have to do a sports romance panel.
Yes.
Gail,
but
I was going to
yes.
say, I feel like this is serving you up
feel it.
an
I
idea
feel it.
for a panel right now.
Yes. Okay, Kay,
Sorry.
summer romance and where can
I
we
got us
find it?
off topic, but anyway, I also wanted to bring it back to sports a little bit because we didn't talk about that. And there are summer sports that make for great stories. I think it's pretty clear. I like watching baseball. I like baseball culture because it's real weird. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for romantic stories in there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the stories that the 2 that I've written several summer romances, but the 2 that I've been talking about today are, my brain just went dead. Open Hearts, which is book 3 in the Stealing Hearts series, where these 2 dudes who are friendly are in a wedding party. And of course, things happen. They also go camping, like all of the things that I would not normally do because I don't camp either. I wrote into a story. I was like, I don't camp, but these guys can camp and they loved it. They had a great
Right.
time. And then Color You In is a workplace romance with 2 EMTs who are sort of competing for the same position. And it's taking place in the summertime. When one of them is injured, the other dude, his ex-wife kind of skips town and he needs someone to watch his child, who of course is adorable and perfect. And the injured EMT, his partner, steps in, and it's all summertime. Like the kid is cute. They do other things I don't do, like go disc golfing. I don't do these things, but I could write it into a story and it's great. So those are the 2 stories that I was talking about tonight. And they were both a lot of fun to write. Actually, Color You In is book 2 in the EMS Station 1 series, because I have a thing for EMTs and paramedics. This is like a therapy session. I'm just going to talk about all of these things. And you can find me on kevancoles.com. I'm on a lot of the socials, which is also on kevancoles.com, but I don't, I'm not on X, but the rest of them.
I have to
Gail.
take this call. So, Kay, when you're done, just pass it to Nancy and on around, and I should be done by the time we get back to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm actually done. So how about Nancy? You can
All right, thank you. The 2 books that I've mentioned in passing tonight are Renegade Mage is set in the summer, but it's about mages fighting ghouls and demons in southern Georgia. And so the summer weather is mostly atmospheric in there. It doesn't really play into the romance. It's a love on the run kind of enemies to lovers story. So they don't have a lot of time for hanging out in bathing suits are going to cookouts because they're fighting a lot. The secret baby story is called Worth the Wait. It's a small town romance, romantic suspense, as I said, and it's a second chance at love / friends to lovers story with a secret baby. And so there are a lot of activities involving little kids, and I grew up in a small town, so I know how it is when you come back to your small town hometown and people know everything you ever did in your youthful life. So those are my 2 summer romances. And you can find me at nancynorthcott.com. My social media links are there. I'm Nancy Northcott on almost all social media, except occasionally I decided to be author Nancy Northcott. So you can find me that way. And let's see, I can't remember who comes after me. Is it?
I think it's Layla, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Off to you, Layla.
All right. Well, let's see. I've got Claiming Cody for summer romance, which is poly bikers with some surfing going on. A good chunk of that book takes place on the sand dunes around the MC's compound because they have, a lot of my biker guys are actually surfer guys too, and they've got a compound right on the beach. Then I've
Nice.
got Devon's Boys, which is set up around a tall ship festival in Maine, and a rock band, another poly one, a rock band who wants to play the festival and is working towards auditions. There's, of course, Seafoam and Saltwater Taffy and Painted Love, which are both part of my Pride collection that takes place every year. And we will be doing Pride Camp this year. So I will have another summer romance coming there, as well as Prayers for the Prickly, which will be coming out in May, which is another summer set on the coast. Characters getting handfasted at midsummer. And speaking of midsummer, Waiting for Rain, which is the first book of my Comet Lake series, kicks off during the midsummer mating heat, and the whole series of 6 books spirals from there. So you can find
Cool.
me at Layla Dorine Author at Wix.com, Rainbow Lyrics and Mellow Mushrooms. I am not on X. I am on Facebook, Blue Sky, Pinterest, and Instagram from time to time. And TikTok, if it still exists, I have an account, but I haven't checked it in forever.
And I think Ariel, you're last. You're
I
bring up
Yeah.
the galleon.
I guess I'll pick up. So yeah, I'm Ariel Dawn. You can find me at ariel-dawn.com. I'm pretty much everywhere you can find books, because I am a hybrid published author. So I have a slew of self-published titles as well as titles through 90 Nights Press. My summer romances are A Dark and Stormy Night, which it takes place in 1996, off the coast of Massachusetts. So it is summer vacation. It is very much in the vibe of Summerween. So you have since I said it is 1996, you have a college student going away with her friend to go work the resort off of the coast, which is run and owned by a lovely vampire couple that keep reinventing themselves over and over and over. And she gets stranded in their mansion, after a party because there's the hurricane warning coming, and she doesn't wake up in enough time and wakes up in the mansion with the vampires. So that's
Party,
a fun
party,
one.
party.
It is a standalone, and it is a White Choose. So, and then I have Heartbreaker, which is coming out this summer. It is a Kickstarter project right now. We are in pre-launch.
Cool.
So once I think it's 300 followers for pre-launch, we will launch it. And it is also a standalone. It is a limited edition new release. So it will be released with beautiful hand-colored edges and fancy formatting and all that fun stuff. We have some artisan candles and stuff that are going in for the boxes. So there will be like hardbacks, there'll be paperbacks, ebooks. And it is a camboy romance. So it is about Devin, who is the camboy, and his sister is getting engaged to the pretty rich boy, and they go up to Andrew's family's house in the Hamptons for the summer. He's going to propose to the sister, and obviously things do not work out with the sister. So there is cheating. I will throw that out there because I know that's a hard one for some people. Other people love it, but those are the two summer romances that I have going on right now. And like I said, you can find me pretty much anywhere. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Threads, I'm in your doghouse out back. I'm pretty much everywhere. So, and I'm everywhere as Ariel Dawn or Ariel Dawn author. So.
Now that sometimes we all have to go with the author because somebody else stole our name,
Mhm.
I know on Instagram, I'm my email, which is JPA Griffin instead of Jeanne Adams because there were 3 Jeanne Adamses. I'm like, dude, really? All right, Gail, you're up.
Hey, when your accountant calls in tax season, you got to take the call.
Yes, you do.
So, I am easy. Well, Badlands is my Myrtle Beach series. And if you're wondering why Badlands and Myrtle Beach, it's because one of my characters is a big Bruce Springsteen fan. So all of the books in the series are named for Springsteen songs. And then Treasure Trail is the Cape May series. The whole time I was writing it, people were going, you do know what that means? Yes, I do know what that means. And that's the one set in Cape May. But summer rolls around in a lot of my other series because they are long-term sequential and you just work your way through the seasons. As for finding me online, I'm pretty easy. It's gailzmartin.com, morganbrice.com. As long as you spell those right, you'll find me on all the major socials. But most of the time, you can find me here on Continual. So thank you all so much for being wonderful, wonderful panelists. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more romance coming up on Continual. So we'll see you online.